Welcome to the Herd's official YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out the Colin Cowherd podcast, all of our NFL instant reactions, and more football content. And with that, the voice of college football at Fox, Joel Klatt, who's going to be calling the Trojans and the Fighting Illini Saturday. Can't wait for that. Let me start with this. I was surprised by the line because I think Ohio State's got much better players than Washington. I think it'll be a really picturesque day. But lost in, there's been so much talk about Texas isn't that good and Clemson's falling apart and Notre Dame lost 2 games. Lost in all of it is Ohio State's really, really good. So they're not getting a lot of discussion since the Texas win. Julian saying, when you look at Ohio State, is there anywhere they're better than last year's team that won the Natty?
Oh, that's a great question. Last year's team, I mean, from a roster construction standpoint, was historically good. You know, they were the best talent composite team in the entire country a year ago. Hard to say. I do think that they could probably have a more elite passing game, in particular down the field. I think Sayan gives them that with his precision. Now, he has thrown a couple of picks in the last couple of games, and that's worrisome for a young quarterback in particular about to go make his first start on the road. And by the way, Husky Stadium is nothing to scoff at now. Washington has the second longest home win streak in college football at 22 games, Colin. They haven't lost since 2021, and Washington is a very good football team. I think that they have gone totally overlooked in our sport. In fact, the AP poll continues to prove to everyone what a worthless piece of junk it is by not giving Washington 1 vote. Not one. Not one. You've got to be kidding me. It's so disrespectful. It's out of control. Damon Williams is a very good player at quarterback.
Yeah,
They've got Coleman, Jonah Coleman at running back.
They have a great running back. Coleman's a great top 10 running back in the sport.
And Denzel Boston is very good on the outside. Yep. I actually think Washington might give Ohio State some fits in this one. Not only the environment, but a quarterback that can run around and be mobile. I think the 8.5 that this line is right now, I would probably take the 8.5 and Washington. I could see Ohio State using a conservative game plan, Colin, this weekend in particular, like they did against Texas, to protect the young quarterback because it's his first start in a road environment. And to do that in this environment, I think is going to be big for Julian Sayan. I think that they'll be conservative and win this one by only a score.
Oregon at Penn State is going to be magnificent. Excellent defenses. Drew Aller came into the season as the quarterback we talked about. Dante Moore is a pro quarterback eventually. That dude, as they say, he can spin it. I think I like Oregon with the upset. Now, you're talking about 2 great defenses. James Franklin doesn't get the love because he's known as a recruiter. Well, he won at Vandy. He won here. Their defenses are always good. I think it's fairly low scoring despite the high-profile quarterbacks because I think the defenses are really good. How do you see it?
Well, there's 2 huge question marks in this game for me. The first one is Penn State in general, under James Franklin, they do not win these types of games.
They don't.
That's the big knock. In fact, and the data backs that up. It's not just sentiment. You got to go back to 2016 for the last time that they won a regular season game against a top 10 opponent.
Wow.
And it's 14 in a row. They're 0-14 in the regular season against a top 10 opponent. Now, they beat Utah in a bowl game, and Boise was technically ranked also in a bowl game and inside of the top 10, but not in the regular season and not against the Big Ten. And this Oregon team is formidable, and the reason that you articulated is their quarterback. I think Dante Moore is quickly becoming one of the Heisman favorites in college football.
Yeah.
He is ridiculously talented as a thrower, but he's also prepared and can run. So that combination for me makes him a really dangerous player. This environment's going to be incredible, though. I just talked about the Husky Stadium up there in Seattle. I tell you, the whiteout at Penn State probably is the most difficult environment in all of college football. I can't make a pick. I mean, on my show, I said Penn State by 1. I think it's going to be a crazy game. I would take the 3.5 if I was out there with Oregon.
Yes.
But maybe Penn State, because here's the thing. I think James Franklin has to win this game. Like Dan Lanning in Oregon, they don't have to win this game. But if Penn State loses at home, it's like we're all going to be sitting there and thinking to ourselves, is he ever going to win a matchup game? Yeah, he went to the semifinal last year, but they beat Boise and SMU. not quite the same route that Ohio State had to take to the national championship last year when they had to play Tennessee and then Oregon and then Texas. So when is the moment when James Franklin and Penn State is going to level up? Maybe it happens on Saturday, but they really need to win a game like this or else their confidence level is going to start to get rattled.
Speaking of a team that struggles in big spots, Lincoln Riley's been 4-10 against ranked teams. I said this earlier. Caleb Williams is a bit more talented quarterback than Jaden Mayava. But when I would watch USC with Caleb Williams, I felt like it was Caleb's offense, and Lincoln sometimes was along for the ride. When I watch this offense, it is Lincoln Riley's.
Yeah.
Power run. He liked to run the ball more at Oklahoma than people give him credit for. Very clever. Tight end use. Really, really clever. I mean, there's a very layered offensive game plan. Very little is ad-libbed.
Okay, so
it feels like to me this USC team with their size up front, this is his first team that I feel like this is completely Lincoln Riley's team.
Yeah, it's very much more in the blueprint. Yeah, you've come around. I told you this 3 weeks ago, and you kind of raised your eyebrows, I remember. But yes. They're number 1 in the country in yards per play. They're top 5 in yards per pass, top 5 in yards per rush. So it's balanced, which the OU offenses were always balanced. And this was because here's the thing. This can be true. This can be true that Caleb Williams was the best quarterback talent-wise that Lincoln Riley had at USC. And Jaden Mayava's offense could be better than Caleb Williams' offense. Why? Because it's more balanced. Mayava stays within the system more. So what they threaten the defense with is actually what I would consider to be deeper than what Williams threatened the defense with. Williams played so much ball outside of the X's and O's, and it was hard to game plan from an offensive perspective. There were times when the numbers would suggest he needed to hand the football off, but in the run-pass option, he would keep it in order to try to make a play with a cape on his back. And again, incredibly talented, but this offense is better and it's more balanced. Wayman Jordan at running back is really good.
Great.
And then you mentioned the line of scrimmage. They're better on the offensive line than they have been the last couple of years. That's pretty clear. But also the defensive line. Did you know that they knew that they needed to get bigger? And size plays such a huge part in being able to play solid defense on the defensive line. This year they average in their defensive line 2 deep, 300 pounds. Last year it was 270. Just over 270. So they're much more formidable up front on the defensive side, which I think is going to help them in the Big Ten schedule. This is, I think, the most underrated team in the country. They lost a lot of close games a year ago. They're much better. Their offense is very good and it's balanced. I think USC is on the precipice to make a run here in the next month when they've got Illinois on the road. They're going to have Notre Dame. They're going to have Michigan. You're going to see them win some of these games, and everyone's going to be, well, I think they're going to have their eyes open to how good USC actually is.
Well, it's interesting. I told Urban Meyer this about a month ago. I said the NIL, coaches initially looked at it as, evil. I said it's actually a job saver because you can't fire the coach and write an $80 million check and also have $20 million a year to buy players. I'm like, in the end, you're going to give Brian Kelly an extra year or two because you're asking so much of your donors. And so the NIL, actually, it's almost like March Madness. If you make the tournament, you keep your job. The NIL is giving coaches a year or two. And so I look at Lincoln. I think they're on their way. And I look at Oklahoma. And I said this a couple of weeks ago. John Mateer, now he's banged up, and they're not going to have him for a while. He's excellent. That kid is excellent. I think Venables, between all the juniors and seniors on defense and finding their magical quarterback, and it takes a while. Sometimes even the big schools can't find them. I think Lincoln and Venables, it's going to work. And I think in a different world 20 years ago, they'd have had the donors breathing down their neck. My question with Oklahoma, because I think Oklahoma's a playoff team. I think they're a top 6 or 7 team. But now they don't have their quarterback.
Yeah.
What's that going to look like?
I would disagree with you on OU because they don't have balance and they don't have depth at this point. Because in order to beat Michigan, Mateer had to be Superman, and he was. And
he is gifted.
He's very gifted, and he's sensational. Now he's got this broken hand. He's going to have surgery. Now he's going to be out a month. They don't beat Texas without John Mateer. I'm sorry, I don't care how good their defense has played, and they have played incredibly well. They're not going to beat Texas without John Mateer because their offense doesn't do anything without John Mateer. Do you know their running backs average per rush is 130th in the country. So they don't have anything outside of Mateer. So now he's gone for a month. They will lose one, maybe two games. They've got Ole Miss in that stretch. They've also got South Carolina in that stretch. But then, Colin, once they get him back, then they've still got to face Alabama, Missouri, LSU. Like, I don't see them being a playoff team without him healthy every single week. And this was my exact concern right after they beat Michigan, is I was like, that's a great win for Oklahoma. Man, it's fantastic. And Mateer should be the Heisman frontrunner. But if he goes down, watch out. And that's where we're at. So I'm actually a bit concerned. I would be panicked for Oklahoma at this point. The back end of their schedule is not favorable. Without Mateer on the field, I don't see them beating teams that they're evenly matched in, which they were able to do against Auburn and against Michigan. So from the Oklahoma standpoint, I'm a bit concerned for them.
Most underrated team in the country, most overrated team in the country.
Oh, that's a good one. I think USC is the most underrated team in the country. I don't think people really realize how real USC is. I think you can make a case that Washington is the most underrated team in the country without one vote in the AP, which is just ridiculous. Overrated, that's a tougher one.
I think, let me throw it. I don't know if they're rated high. I don't buy Michigan despite beating Nebraska. I don't buy them.
Yeah, I mean, they're not rated overly high. I think that score was a lot closer than the game indicated.
Oh, absolutely.
They ran it for over 300 yards. Nebraska threw a Hail Mary at the end of the half. Then they scored late. So it was like a 10-point margin the way the game played out, and it ends up being 3 on the scoreboard. I would look at a team like Ole Miss. Ole Miss might be overrated.
I got LSU this weekend. Yeah,
they've got LSU, and they're weirdly favored in that game. I don't buy that at all. They're favored by 1.5. I don't buy that at all. Ole Miss struggled to beat Kentucky and Arkansas. That's an Arkansas team that lost to Memphis. Chambliss is their new quarterback. He's a D2 transfer, came from Ferris State, won a national championship there. But now they're going to face a defense that is really good. LSU's defense is fantastic.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways is the reason that LSU is undefeated. So I think Ole Miss is a bit overrated at this point. And then I'll tell you a team that I think Bama struggles this week. But we've kind of come
Georgia
back on their side.
Georgia doesn't lose at home. Georgia's going to beat Bama.
I agree, but it's also what people are failing to realize is Bama is terrible on the road. Colin, if you go back to last year, they played totally uninspired against Vandy, lost on the road. They got throttled by Oklahoma, which Oklahoma was not a great team last year.
I know. I watched that game.
And they got throttled on the road at Oklahoma. They come out after a full off season in the first game of the year and got blasted by Florida State on the road. And now they've got to go on the road and maybe the toughest place to play in the country, where Georgia hasn't lost since pre-COVID. They've got the longest home winning streak in the country. And Georgia is coming off a confidence builder in which they were down 21-7 on the road at Neyland Stadium to Tennessee and came back and won. That conference still goes through Georgia. I think Bama is in some serious trouble this weekend.
Speaking of on the road, you may want to watch the old pregame show on Fox this weekend.
I hear you're making a trip down to Champaign.
The producers will hopefully squeeze me in for 20 seconds. It's a pretty crowded set, so I'm going to try to, weasel my way into about 20 seconds. I got to talk to Urban, so I'm excited for that.
I love it. Well, we will welcome you with open arms, my friend, and hopefully we get a great environment and a great game on Saturday.
The most fun you can have in Champaign-Urbana, it's the first train leaving. So I won't be there overnight.
See, don't do that. Why do that before you go? I love Champaign. Hey, Champaign, come to town and I love you. I've heard you got a great ice cream spot, by the way. I don't know what it's called, but I hear there's some great ice cream.
No. I like Champagne too, with some salmon, scalloped potatoes.
Man of the people. Here he is. Colin Cowherd, man of the people, right here.
I'm joking. People, this show is tongue-in-cheek.
That's
light,
right. That's
levity
right.
everywhere.
That's right.
All right. Good seeing you, buddy.
You as well. Have a great day, bud.
Yeah. No, I can't wait. I'm going to be here. We got a lot of people on these pregame shows. Yeah. So I read this story this morning. Josh Pate, who's a great college football podcaster. He's Josh Pate. He said, Lincoln Riley, I regret to inform you, he told his audience, has himself a really good quarterback in Jaden Mayava. I think Mayava is a better quarterback for Lincoln than Caleb Williams was. He may not be the most talented, but he plays within a system. And I actually agree with Josh here. Caleb Williams' second year at USC, after the Notre Dame game, Lincoln Riley lost trust of the O-line at USC, and he was protecting Caleb more than he was unleashing him. And it did feel like it was Caleb's offense and not Lincoln Riley's for big portions of the second year. And Lincoln Riley, when you watch USC, this is Lincoln Riley's offense. He likes to run the ball more than people give him credit for. He has done an amazing job. So Jaden Mayava last year, I watched USC 3 times live. This kid was reckless. He was loose. I didn't trust him throwing over the middle. He was mistake prone. He was almost, not like emotionally, but as a quarterback, he was kind of an immature, needed more reps quarterback. This year, disciplined, poised, isn't as frenetic, isn't as flip. Every throw seems to matter. Last year, it felt like sometimes he was playing in the backyard. All of that's gone. So horsepower can be sometimes a detriment. I'll give you a great example. So, I love Lamar Jackson. I think he's unbelievable. He's the greatest play extender of all time, but he doesn't throw the ball away enough. And so Lamar always, you saw it on Monday night against the Lions, he's always trying to make a great play out of a missed block or a play that goes sideways. And that means a lot of negative yardage plays by Lamar Jackson. It does feel sometimes he's digging out from one of the holes he created. And he's unbelievable. Caleb Williams has much more horsepower than Jaden Mayava. But I actually, when I watch USC this year, I can see the creative and the smart and the clever and the unique and more of the power running that I think Lincoln Riley actually likes. And I've said this about Joe Burrow. We all love Joe Burrow. But Joe Burrow holds the ball because he's always looking for that big T. Higgins play or Jamar Chase play, and he doesn't have much of a run game. So he knows he'd like to get some cheap touchdowns over the top. And once again, Joe Burrow's hurt again. And I love Joe Burrow, and I love Lamar Jackson. And that's what horsepower gives you. The self-belief, and it's often true, that you can make something out of nothing. And I think Caleb, the second year at USC, was hard to coach for Lincoln Riley. He was trying to protect him. He didn't want to get him hurt because he knew he was going to be the number 1 pick. So, and Greg Cosell told us this for years about Aaron Rodgers in his prime. He said, Aaron's actually so gifted, he's extending completions. Completions have been schemed up by Mike McCarthy. They've been schemed up. He's not going to use them because he wants to make a bigger play. So this USC team, to me, feels like Lincoln's team. And here was Lincoln Riley this week talking about Jaden Mayava.
Jaden deserves, a ton of credit. He did a really good job after the end of the season of just really taking an honest look at what he did well and what he's got to do better, and then just really put his head down and just own the things that he knew he had to be better at and that we put in front of him. And he's incredibly coachable. And that's where, his humility is a strength. Occasionally you have sometimes quarterbacks that are so hard-headed that it can go the other way where they almost become a little less coachable than you want them to be.
And I don't think he's throwing shade at anybody. I think it is harder to be coachable when you're as gifted as Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. I think it's harder because in high school, in college, you've had so much success just sort of bulldozing your way to success. And Jaden Mayava is not Caleb Williams. He doesn't have that arm strength. But when you watch this team now, you're like, oh, that's Lincoln's team. It's very clever, power running, now use the tight ends. Sometimes some RPO stuff. It's a good team. How good? I'll know when they go to Notre Dame. I'll know when they go to Oregon. But they're good.